So music is supposed to be continuing to grow very, very strong. Lots of business model changes. Probably the one sector which saw the most disruptive force in the early days when piracy came, and I remember Napster and Lime and all these platforms. Today it's long, long way down the road. We have a situation where you have perfect distribution, so the market is coming, they call it the bath-shape recovery. It's coming back up. Maybe we start by introducing yourselves, because you serve all very different market needs. Maybe we start from the right with Daniel. What is Native Instrument?
Yeah, Native Instruments is turning computers into musical instruments, composition environments, DJ gear. We create software to do so and also provide hardware to support the producer or the DJ to make his music. And we also, by now, have an online platform, sounds.com, to get our content right in the hands of the consumers via our online platform.
Because you have the DJ software and the music production tools.
That's right. We serve two different kind of customers, from the very pros to let's say, the ambitious beginner.
Right.
You still need a little tech savviness to handle the gear.
Lisen, tell us about Soundry.
Yes, Soundry is a music service for businesses of all sizes that want to influence the emotions and decisions of consumers around the world.
And it's mostly selling to businesses, right?
Exactly. So retail, restaurants, cafes, anything in this physical space, basically.
Pirate studio.
Yeah, nothing to do with the piracy from back in the day, I can assure you. But yeah, we are effectively the world's largest network of 24-hour music studios. So we operate in UK, US, and Germany, providing cheap, accessible studio space to bands, DJs, and producers.
So if amateurs want to record the music to become professionals, they can rent a studio through you. What does it cost, like a studio day? Or?
It's pretty cheap. So we tend to do it by the hour. It's kind of pay as you play. Our prices range from anywhere from kind of €5 up to about 12, 13 euros an hour. So
super cheap.
We're quite cheap.
It reminds me of the car sharing. So you're utilizing the technology better by giving access to it through your platform for people.
Yeah, it's a slightly interesting model in that there's no staff on our site, so we're effectively letting musicians run riot in our buildings 24 hours a day. Which potentially is seen by some as slightly risky, but I think we live in a new world now where actually people are very respectful of these kind of services. So through that, we're then able to generate effectively cheaper costs for ourselves, which we can pass on to
speak
customers.
a bit slower, louder, and clearer, because it's very difficult. We are like stupid Germans. We don't understand your dialect.
Sorry.
It's very hard to follow you.
So yeah, through being self-service, we can effectively pass the cost savings that we make then onto our customers in cheaper prices.
And you take a commission out of the €5 or €12?
So actually the studios are our own. So
it's your studios?
So we build...
You own them?
All of these studios, yeah. So we've effectively developed this kind of unique flat pack construction model that we use to take to big warehouses all over the world. And then we build these soundproof pods within the warehouse. And we effectively then kit them out to whatever kind of studio that we're looking to build.
Fantastic. And you said you're in what countries? Globally?
So we're in the UK. That's where the majority of our locations are now. But we're also in Germany and the US.
Okay. Let's talk about the labels. It used to be you had like the big five. There was a little bit of M&A going on. But the world got really, really complicated because now you have like a very long tail of music creators, and they don't, the labels don't control anymore the industry. How is it with Native? You power, I think it was 3 million music creators or something like this, but a relatively high number?
Actually, it's more like 3 million registered users, and we serve about 10 million users if we count all those that use the gear but didn't pay for it.
it still exists.
It still exists. Yeah, it's crazy. Even our most popular synthesizer, we have stats that show that 5-to-1 ratio. One bought it, even though it's a lot of people bought it, and it's a highly profitable item for us. But still 5 times more people.
But you're not a publishing house helping them.
No, we're not. We're not. We're simply providing the gear, set them up to really create their tracks, and then the rest we leave up to others. Even though we might build bridges in the future to the distribution side of things and the consumption side of things.
Do you still need a label to be successful? Listen, if you know, I mean, there are like also, there's Cobalt, Believe Digital, a French business. What is the market share of the labels, of the new artists, of the new published work? It's going down significantly, I think, right?
So we look upon it as the one that is growing and is most interesting right now in the music industry is the emerging artists area, so to say. So we've seen last year only the DIY segment grew significantly, is now taking up more than 3% of royalties that are actually being paid out. And how we see that that is actually also spurring is through Epidemic. So Soundry is part of Epidemic Sound, which has a unique ecosystem, and we allow artists to actually produce under a very flexible model. So we don't lock them in, we purchase track by track, meaning that they can still be very flexible in how they produce, they can still be themselves, so to speak, and they don't get labeled into a box or don't have to sign up to a long contract or anything like that. And then we take actually the risk of distribution, so to say. We put it into our ecosystem. So Epidemic has a mission of soundtracking the world. And we do that through 4 different channels. One is the soundtracking entertainment. So we provide music to Netflix. We are soundtracking the internet. So we're one of the largest providers of music for YouTube, for instance. We are soundtracking your personal life, so on streaming platforms, and we're soundtracking spaces through Soundry. And in this way, we're actually seeing that especially millennials are really, they really have an interest and they appreciate this model. So where we used to have maybe 100 per year coming to wanting to work with us, now we have 100 per week that want to work with us. We don't take everyone on, so we can be very selective, but...
And the jobs of the labels, or the job of the labels from the old days, distribution, publishing, I mean, didn't it get like super simple? You basically connect to Spotify as an artist, and here you go. Does the music industry still need labels? There's no like official retail. I don't know. I haven't been to a music store for a very long time. Do they still exist? Do they still produce
I think the business
CDs?
model. Yeah, I think the business model is just changing. The role that a label plays is changing, and obviously everyone is trying to cut out middlemen.
Yes.
To make more margin, and so the life of the labels is getting harder, but they still have a job to support the artist, to promote the artist, to really work with the artist.
But this
depends on the person,
you know. Becoming a bit more competitive because there are a lot of new services.
If I can add to that, so what I think is very interesting to look at is the distribution. So a little bit like you said, I mean, I think there will always be the one top percent, like the Katy Perrys of the world or the Rihannas, they will belong to a label, but if we look at where the consumption and especially maybe the, first of all, the discovery of music will happen, that has completely shifted to online. So where you had the radio before being the one who provided you with the hits, now it's actually discovery online. More than 50% of teenagers now are actually listening or discovering new music on YouTube. And if you can be present there and actually drive fandom from that to the streaming platforms, then you have a very powerful position.
Yeah, I remember very well this Korean singer, what was it, Gangnam Style or some, and I thought when that started, we will have hundreds of those to follow, but it seems to be a one-trick pony. Not like him producing more songs, but I thought through social we will find a lot of people like this. But it didn't really happen. Let's talk about this. You have a lot of wannabe stars in your studios. Has there been somebody coming out of it who became very famous? How old is your company?
So the company is still only 3.5 years old. So typically we do work with very grassroots emerging artists. And so there's a couple of people on the right trajectory, and you know, they've achieved great things like signed record deals, gone on, reached top 20 in terms of the album charts in the UK, but no one probably who is a household name yet. But you know, I think it's interesting looking at the social side of things.
Yes.
Is actually these big players, so for instance Gangnam Style, that had this kind of viral effect.
Yeah.
You know, it takes this personality, this kind of online persona, this character, which then, you know, when blended with the music can create this kind of viral effect. But I think what the streaming sites now are doing well is meaning that not all artists have to have these huge personas online in order to become successful. So utilizing things like playlists on the streaming sites, actually artists can start to be recognized for their musical talents without actually having to be the big personalities that others are on social.
Don't need to dress up like an idiot to get famous anymore.
There's definitely a few people who would match that description, but at the same time...
I mean, you provide the recording studio. Do you do more? Can you act as a label? Should you act as a label? Could you monetize more? 5 euros per hour? Sounds like you have to have a lot of studios to get to a big business. Maybe I'm wrong, but...
yeah, no, we do. We have to open a lot of studios. I mean, for us, we kind of always want to remain on the artist side. That's always been our mantra. And so by becoming a label, I actually don't think that we could do that. In the end, we'd have to be selective about the artists that we work with. Some of the artists who didn't make it, we'd have to get dropped from the label.
Too much headache.
I don't feel like we could ever really truly remain on all of the artists' side and service all the grassroots musicians out there if we became a label. But there's a good opportunity for us, I think, to connect the artists in our community with the industry partners who are doing amazing things out there, and for us effectively just to become an A&R arm.
Now, since radio is like the TV equivalent in the music industry for linear decision-making to decide what we hear in our cars, and now, I mean, we have our playlists on Spotify, SoundCloud. Is it right to assume that the average, or that the number of artists around or were listened to grew a lot, and that the big stars, you know, the top 10 positions, I don't know, what is like the rank, what are the rankings you would look at? You don't look anymore as sold records, which is the old metrics.
You look at the Spotify playlist and the streams. You know, we just did a check of I was actually surprised. I gotta admit, I'm not that close to all the music in the world, but that the Latin
or hip hop is having
hip hop anyway, but that is already since a while.
Yeah.
But now Latin is on the rise. I think almost half of the top tracks played globally on Spotify are Latin artists. So it's a phenomena what's going on there, and they really define what's the sound of the time. So Spotify, you know, looking at Spotify and what Apple Music do, this is really where our eyes are when it comes to consumption and styles and trends. And obviously, we have the privilege to work with a lot of artists and see also what's coming in.
But you also work with the big stars, because your technology, your tools are being used by, I think you gave me some metrics in the past, the top 100 music art, I mean, 60–70% used.
Yeah, you know, it's a general statement, but I'd say
you're like the
honestly,
shuffle provider and the golden gold rush.
Almost every song you hear in the charts, we are kind of involved.
Because you also sell sounds.
This is our on sounds.com, but our instruments specifically, our virtual instruments, they are used by almost all professional artists around the globe, and it really doesn't matter which music style, if it's hip-hop or pop or electronica, heavy metal, you know, you can have Drake, Metallica, whatever, they are all users of ours. But I think the common theme that we all have here is, and you mentioned that just now, is accessibility.
Yeah.
Make music making or music listening available to more people.
But it's a bit, I mean, I love music, I love electronic music, so it's probably a little different. And I tell you, it's a complete mess, right? You don't have electronic music on Spotify, at least not a lot. So you really have to listen on SoundCloud. But the DJ doesn't make any money with recorded music. They make all the money with live acts. So they don't really have a too big interest that it's actually neat and clean and you find like his top songs.
There's companies working on that, obviously, on the whole derivative works.
I know,
topic,
but then there's YouTube, which kind of put like a premium service on it to cut out the ads. I think there's almost the same content on YouTube than on SoundCloud, different problems on both sides. But as a consumer, yes, I would pay for a structured electronic music product. Accessibility, yes, it's somewhere there, but you really have to know how to search. And it's a terrible experience to play electronic music today streamed because you don't really find what you're looking for. What do you think, Lisen? You are all about curation and finding the right music for the business to play in the store, that the customers are happy shopping.
Exactly. So I'm happy that you're bringing that up, actually, because I think there are a couple of interesting points that you're making here. And just to tie back a little bit to the fact that with the Gangnam Style and how that became viral, we have a very interesting example from Epidemic Sound where we took a track and put it into our ecosystem, and we have a YouTuber who has a very big follower. She has several million followers on YouTube, Afmao, and she found one of the tracks in our player, used it for one of her videos. It was called Faster Car by a group called Loving Caliber, and within the first few weeks, it got millions and millions of views. And the #1 comments, so there were hundreds of comments, were, I love this track, where can I find it? And that's where we started to actually decide to put our music up to the streaming platforms. And what is interesting in that is that you have more of the curation when you're looking to influencers, for instance, or you're looking into the platforms where you find your context. For instance, what you were talking about earlier, also with esports, etc. You have a very specific interest, and that's where you hang out and where you discover music, and then you will actually be able to find it on the streaming platform. So last time I checked, Faster Car and Loving Caliber had more than 13 million streams on Spotify. So I think you can be very successful on the big streaming platforms, even if you're not the top 1%, as you say. And I also think that that will be driven by influencers and by services such as Soundry through the curation that we do. So for us, it's super important to provide playlists for businesses that has, it brings the emotion, or it brings the vibe that you want in the store. It doesn't single out the hits that you want to kind of beat into someone's mind like the radio used to do. But when you're walking to the office on Monday morning and you pass by your local coffee shop and you get your espresso, you might actually hear that one track that stands out a little bit and you really like it, and you put up your phone and you Shazam it, and all of a sudden you're listening on Spotify again. So I think there is a very interesting ecosystem there, and it's just starting to shape.
What's your view on the big platforms? Apple and Google both are very active in the music space. Apple probably more than Google. I mean, at some point, Netflix probably is offering music on top of the movie content, maybe, my speculation. But what's going to happen? Where are you going to consume your music? Do you believe that the big platforms are going to take market share of Spotify? They're already doing to some extent, and there are also new ones, Tidal in the US, and new platforms coming. Is music such an attractive business, or is it maybe just an entry point to get the user and then sell different things?
I mean, definitely the landscape is getting much more diverse. New players coming in. Amazon is still trying to convince me every week to also use their music service, even though...
And they had a disadvantage because they started with a download ownership model. And apparently the whole world is going stream, so they were on the wrong side of the medal, and now they're also moving into stream. But
that's right, and quite frankly, I don't know where it's going to end, if Netflix is going to get into music.
You just want more music creators, right?
we are focusing on the music creation side, and the problems that you describe on curation, on making it easy to really do things. You know, you were talking about finding the music and listening to it, but I'm talking about enabling people to make music.
Yes.
And also here, there's a lot of things to gain, to make it more convenient, curate better. So similar themes, but now targeted at the people that actually want to create music and not just listen to it. So that's the difference when we do in our business. And actually, when I was visiting the studios from
do they have
Pirate
native
Studios,
hardware in there?
they had some. Not enough. We need to change that. But I found it
later.
I found it really interesting when people today say accessibility, they think digital, they think online, and then these guys come around, and we felt an immediate opportunity for collaboration, because the physical element is not going to go away. The musicians are still humans, and they still work in physical environments, and they not always, because they are also looking for communities to interact with others. So the connection of the real world with the digital world, that is highly interesting, and I find it fascinating that there's a company that puts out actually pretty beautiful studios. I've just visited their facilities in Neukölln, and you know, I felt inclined to maybe just go in there with my guitar and feel like a rock star for a sec. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to connect the physical with the digital world, and that in this case focused at the creators. Obviously, that's our mission. And if we ever get involved with distribution, then just connecting to the distribution places and not really doing the job of those folks. I'm happy.
Yeah, publishing and distribution, the same in e-commerce, is a bit of a commodity. It just got a lot more complex as an artist to manage your success or to drive your success. As a coffee shop owner in Berlin, I want to have great music and inspire my customers. How do I pay, and what are your products? How does it work? I subscribe. Is it a streaming service or?
Exactly. So it's an app that you download. So it's completely online if you want to do the onboarding that way. We can also provide more premium service where we're actually sitting down with the music team and we go through like, what's your brand? How does your demography in your store look like? Who are the clients that you want to attract, and who are the ones who are actually in your store today, for instance? So we have everything from a very simple solution that starts at 16 euros a month, and then you're just on a monthly subscription, up to the more premium, tailor-made services that we can
And it's
offer.
more like independent music, because Epidemic has all these jingles for the TV shows. No, I remember that's how it
we're
started.
much more than just jingles, absolutely. So we're working with emerging artists. So primarily, as you say, also the grassroots and DIY artists, and they come to us because they, as I said before, they value the flexible model of actually being able to produce track by track and getting paid upfront for it. So what we do is we ask our artists to value distribution over ownership. And once we have purchased the track, we put it into this ecosystem and we start distributing it. And for us, the success is measured in how many streams you actually get on Spotify, for instance. Because if we can make your hit or your track a hit on Spotify, then we are successful and we share that success 50-50. So all the revenues that we gain from streaming platforms, we share that 50-50 again with the artist. And we've seen that that model is fit for purpose. Emerging artists enjoy it, they like it, and they come to us, and it works. So we have more than 500 hit tracks, as we call them, or define them on Spotify and other streaming platforms, which is a song needs to have at least 1 million streams.
You said Spotify, so it's coming out of Spotify, or?
So we upload our music to Spotify and to other streaming platforms as well. So you as a private consumer can also enjoy our music. But if you're a business, we should talk.
Yeah, we need some music here at NOAH, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Play more music,
I think we should provide you next year.
Got a bit more complicated to put some speakers here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the artist. Is the life of the artist in the digital world of Spotify and co becoming tougher? Are they making less money because the whole distribution model changed? Now it's like a freemium versus the 20 euros CD you bought in the past, Daniel? Are they complaining to you that they have no money left to pay for your...
It's a constant topic. I think the smaller musicians that were just making some money, they are usually now making even less.
Yes, because the pies are smaller, no? Because Spotify takes a lot, then the labels, for whatever reason, take also, because they still have some legacy business, of course. And then
there's not so much left for the artists, absolutely. But I think we all realize that the business model for artists is changing. It has been changing. You know, you need a gig. You need to really promote yourself. You might need to find, you know, be it merchandise. There's many ways to make money with your music, and you shouldn't just rely on the one track that you distributed at some point and that hopefully makes you enough money to live off. But you actually need to constantly think in business terms. Okay, where do I put myself and my music, and find other income streams than just the streaming?
But live music as a sector grows a lot, right?
It's huge.
Yeah,
bigger than ever.
I think Live Nation and CTS Evente, my friend Mr. Klaus-Peter Schulenberg, who used to own, who owns the Tempodrome, I think live music, like events, you know, craving for experience and
festivals blew up like crazy.
That is growing a lot. Huh? So you like to listen with others rather than at your car or.
But it's as you say, it's about events, it's about experience. I think for the last few years, or for a very long time, the retail experience has been very bland. And what we can actually provide with Soundry and being part of Epidemic Sound is actually we can have our artists come and perform at your venue, for instance. So we're not only providing you with a music service, we're not only providing the artists with a distribution platform, but we're also providing venues across the globe where we see that you actually have maybe a bigger follower group.
You are aware of Grace Note and Shazam, who I think categorize or catalog the whole industry. Is the number of like songs or content growing because of digital and the long tail artists? As somebody a statistic? With your studios, you're producing a lot of music, I think.
Yeah, I would say that the opportunities afforded to artists through these new services means that they can get their music out to a wider audience. That's creating a bigger demand. That's why the music industry is growing at the moment. And through that, you know, then there's this huge supply. You mentioned Latin America, or someone mentioned Latin America earlier. I think it was you, Daniel. There's huge growth in that market. Asia as well is now becoming a powerhouse in terms of music creation. But even Africa, you know, they've got these streaming services now. I think Spinlet, Boomplay. And these things are starting to take off, but it's purely focused around African culture and African music. And so it's not just the UK and the US anymore that are pumping all the music into the market. Actually, it's a huge spread coming from worldwide.
It's just so many more millions of people that can finally, make music, because gear studios were much too expensive in the past. Now they can all do it in the bedroom. And two, there is now ways to get your music rather easily on SoundCloud or other platforms. So, of course, there's tons of more music, but also tons of more artists and tons of more opportunity for an artist to create and to get heard.
As long as he get paid or she get paid for it a little bit, I think they will continue to buy your beautiful products. Thank you so much for this insightful talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
music
Marco.
has to go on. We have the next company coming.
Thank you.
Which is Optune. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.